Coming up on Network Africa. Dozens of African students are evacuated from Ukraine following Russia's invasion. Nigeria approves millions of dollars for the evacuation of Nigerians stranded in Ukraine. Plus, the fifth session of the United Nations Environment Assembly ends in Nairobi. Hello and welcome to the program. I'm Layo Azegoke. European Union diplomats have condemned the powerful son of Uganda's President Yoweri Museveni, Lieutenant General Muhoozi Kainerugaba, for expressing support for the Russian invasion of Ukraine. General Kainerugaba had on Tuesday tweeted that the majority of mankind that are non-white support Russia's stand in Ukraine. He says Putin is absolutely right. However, the deputy head of the European Union delegation in neighboring South Sudan has termed the comment as unacceptable, suggesting that Uganda may face unexplained consequences if it formally supports Russia's invasion of Ukraine. The United Nations General Assembly is expected to vote on a resolution censuring Russia over its invasion of its neighbor, Ukraine. Western diplomats in South Sudan is urging the country to support the UN resolution that will be condemning the Russian invasion of Ukraine. The United Nations General Assembly is expected to vote over that resolution. Local media reports that dozens of states are expected to formally abstain from the vote or not engage at all. However, French ambassador to South Sudan says they are hoping that as the newest member of the UN, South Sudan will stand with the UN principles, the international rule-based order that is preserving from warfare, and votes with the vast majority of the international community in favor of this resolution. In the meantime, the South Sudanese government has not responded to the diplomatic call. Juba has neither condemned nor supported Russian aggression since the conflict broke out last week. Uganda's President Yoweri Museveni has invited South Sudan's leaders for talks on the peace process in their country. The meeting is expected to bring together President Salva Kiir, Riek Machar, and 4 other vice presidents to discuss and evaluate the implementation of the 2018 revitalized peace agreement. The leaders are expected to discuss the challenges facing the implementation of the deal. Observers say most provisions of the agreement are yet to be implemented, including the graduation of the Unified Security Forces. And now to our coverage of the Russian-Ukraine invasion. Some 79 Kenyan students have so far left Ukraine following the invasion. The Kenyan government says 1 student has already arrived in Kenya. 74 others are in Poland, 2 are in Romania, and 2 others are in Hungary. The authorities are coordinating the evacuation of many other students from various cities in Ukraine. 4 Kenyan students, according to the ministry, has expressed no interest in leaving Ukraine, citing their personal reasons. All African students have joined Ukraine nationals leaving the country after Russia's invasion. There were also concerns of racism at the border points, and the African Union made a call to countries to respect international law and to assist all those fleeing from the war. Let's get an update on this situation from Kenya. Joining us now is Cyrus Ombati, a Kenyan journalist, to give us more on this. Hello, Cyrus.
Good evening. The Kenyan authorities say they are liaising with so many countries around Ukraine to ensure that Kenyan citizens who are trapped inside Ukraine war and kind of evacuated safely to those countries or back to Kenya. So far, almost 80 Kenyans have managed to cross the border from Ukraine to other countries, including Poland, including Slovakia, even Hungary, as they are fleeing the war. Only one who has managed to come back to Kenya, and 4 of them refused to leave Ukraine, saying they were comfortable there, or that they were staying there for their own personal reasons. So far, Kenya says it has liaised with many European countries to ensure that those Kenyans who are affected by the war are safely evacuated from the country to those countries of EU. We've not had an incident of a Kenyan or kind of an African here who is harmed, other than what we saw the other day, where some Africans were saying they were discriminated against. Talking about the issue of discrimination, the German embassy in Nairobi has issued a statement saying that they don't condone such kind of behavior or talk about discrimination. So the embassy is saying is essentially that as a leading nation in the EU, they are kind of leading in efforts to evacuate everyone who wants to live there, irrespective of their country of origin or color. And they said whatever was aired or whatever has been shared on social media regarding the incident, or whereby some Africans who are apparently or allegedly discriminated against, was an isolated case and it does not reflect the nature of their region at large. So the embassy says that they are in the forefront, coordinating all efforts to ensure that all those who want to leave are given a safe landing, and in efforts to ensure the stability at large. Kenya is caught between a hard place and a rock because of what they get from both Russia and Ukraine. Remember, Ukraine is the biggest exporter of wheat, which Kenya also imports from Ukraine. Also, there are so many raw materials that Kenya gets from Russia. But then, given what was actually spoken or was said at the UN General Assembly last week by the Kenyan ambassador to the UN, Dr. Martin Kimani, it shows that Kenya is in solidarity with most parts of the world, or most countries, and including African Union, in condemning the invasion. They're saying, Ukraine is a sovereign country, and it should be let to be the way it is. No one should come up and try to dictate on how Ukraine should be governed, or should draw its own territories. So Kenyan stance on that has been clear as far as we are concerned, and they are against the invasion at large.
All right then, thank you, Sarah Sombati, Kenyan journalist. Let's move to Southern Africa, where the Zimbabwean government has evacuated 118 students from Ukraine to neighboring countries. The state-owned media reports that over 100 students have been relocated to Romania, Hungary, Slovakia, and Poland. The Information Ministry also says they will be provided with free air tickets to return home. It says the embassies in Russia and Germany are also facilitating this evacuation. The Information Minister is urging Zimbabwean students that are still in Ukraine to find their way to Poland, where they can get government assistance. Let's get more on this story. We have Zimbabwean journalist Nigel Yamutungbu joining us for more. Hello, Nigel. Thank you for speaking to us. Talk to us more about this evacuation plan of, citizens of Zimbabwe from Ukraine and also from the neighboring countries where some of them have been able to seek refuge.
Yes, so the Zimbabwean government has engaged with its embassy, particularly the one in Germany, and the other that looks generally at Europe, to try and evacuate as many of Zimbabwean citizens, in particular students, some of which 118 of those have already been evacuated, some to Poland, Romania, and the surrounding neighboring countries. With those in Poland, plans are afoot to already bring them back to Zimbabwe. So it's still an ongoing process. Some, as you know, it's still not a really safe time, safe period, and still efforts are in place by government through its embassies to try and get as many Zimbabweans back home as possible.
Well, Nigel, since this invasion started last week, Thursday, we've not really heard from Zimbabwe. What do we know is Zimbabwe's stance on this invasion?
Zimbabwe is yet to officially pronounce itself on the current invasion. As I would imagine, there's a lot to consider before it can actually make a statement or actually make any form of intervention. Naturally, Zimbabwe has ties to Russia that date back to the liberation struggle, and even in terms of international relations, Russia vetoed extreme sanctions on Zimbabwe, which the government may feel entitled to support or to side with Russia, but they can't necessarily do that publicly, particularly at a time where this conflict is not straightforward. It's complex. It involves not only relations between the two countries that are having this impasse, but is indeed a test case for the United Nations and Zimbabwe as part of the global family. But so far the indications are they would go by what members of the African Union that are in the Security Council, and indeed by what SADC and the AU would pronounce on the matter.
All right then, thank you, Nigel Yamutungbu, Zimbabwean journalist. Well, as part of efforts to evacuate Nigerians from the neighboring countries surrounding Ukraine, the Ministry of Foreign Affairs has confirmed that charter flights will be departing on Wednesday to pick up Nigerian evacuees back home. Well, in a statement released, the following are records of evacuees received at the Nigerian embassies. There are 650 persons in Hungary, 350 in Poland, 940 persons in Romania, and in Slovakia, there's 150 people. The capacity and route of the airlines are Max Air to Romania, Air Peace to Poland, and another Air Peace flight to Hungary. The first batch of evacuees are expected to arrive Nigeria on Thursday, March 3rd, 2022. Well, the ministry is assuring Nigerians that work is going on round the clock to see that citizens are brought back home safe and sound. In the meantime, the federal government of Nigeria has approved $8.5 million to the Ministries of Foreign Affairs, as well as Humanitarian Disaster Management and Social Development, towards the evacuation of over 5,000 Nigerians that are stranded in Ukraine. This was revealed during the Federal Executive Council meeting, where the Minister of State for Foreign Affairs, Zubairu Dada, told State House correspondents that the aircraft would be dispatched to Poland, Hungary, Slovakia, and Romania. According to him, all the agencies are fully resourced to ensure that the aircrafts leave today to begin the evacuation exercise of willing Nigerians. Still ahead on the program. Turning waste into art, Nigerian creative director showcases her art to raise awareness on waste. Please stay with us. Thank you for staying with us. We continue with other stories. Still here in Nigeria, the Ogun State government has entered into a strategic partnership as it has signed a memorandum of understanding with the Building Collapse Prevention Guild. to reduce loss of life and properties across the state. At a ceremony held at the State Ministry of Physical Planning and Urban Development, the State Commissioner Olatunji Odunlami said this is part of the ongoing reforms in the sector and it is imperative in order to bring sanity to the building sector.
The tragedy and trauma caused by incidents of building collapse in different parts of the country and how to prevent it has remained an important subject of discussion at many different events, where the consensus usually is that it's easy to avoid the failure of structures by checking quackery, unprofessional conducts, unapproved change of designs, among other shortcomings. This informed the current steps being taken by the Ogun State government to bring in professionals in the real estate sector, including architects, builders, surveyors, and other critical stakeholders to be a part of this collaboration.
What has remained a recurring challenge is the building construction stage, where all the other illegalities are perpetrated. This speaks to the need for regular oversight supervision of building project sites by government regulatory agencies to discourage and necessarily sanction such illegalities.
This synergy between the state government and the Building Collapse Prevention Guild is to give room for proper monitoring and strict adherence to international best practices in the state's building industry.
To my professional colleagues in the state and in BCPD, your success will not be measured by the number of sites you seal. Your success will be measured by the number of sites you guide towards fulfilling every building regulation and law of the states in a timely fashion. The eyes of the whole nation is on you, and we trust that you will not disappoint.
The government warns against unprofessional conduct and other sharp practices.
I hereby want to acknowledge the patriotism and doggedness of His Excellency for his initiative and ensuring that all lives matters in Ogun State.
And for the various reforms aimed at repositioning the building sector in the state, Governor Dapo Abiodun is recognized for his outstanding contributions. The award was received on his behalf by the State Commissioner for Information.
The third and final part of South Africa's Commission Chair, Deputy Chief Justice Raymond Zondo's investigation into wide-scale corruption has recommended that former President Jacob Zuma should be investigated further. Mr. Zuma and other senior officials should be investigated for corruption relating to their dealings with Bosasa, a firm that was repeatedly awarded government contracts. According to this Zondo Commission report, we found that Zuma likely breached his obligations as president under the Constitution when he accepted gifts from the company in the form of lavish parties. The company was found to have regularly bribed government officials and some members of the governing African National Congress in exchange for business contracts within a number of state entities. Further recommendations include that current Mineral Resources Minister and senior African National Party politicians should be investigated for unduly benefiting from Bosasa. The report comes after a 4-year investigation into allegations of grand corruption between the government and private sector during President Jacob Zuma's term in office. To a tragic story in Sudan, 5 Sudanese football players are said to have died after their boat capsized on Sunday. Local media reports that the players were all members of Al Milaha football team, as a local team in Shendi town, north of Khartoum. They're said to have been traveling on a boat to the west bank of the river to play against El Giref in the 3rd Division League in the Al Matama town, north of the capital. The United Nations Environment Assembly is ending today after ministers of environment and other representatives from over 170 nations convened since Monday in Nairobi to launch the 5th session. The assembly kicked off with high hopes to advance a global agreement on plastic pollution among a series of draft resolutions on biodiversity and health, green economy and circularity. The UN Environment Assembly meets biannually to set priorities for global environmental policies and also to develop international environmental law. Decisions and resolutions then taken by member states at the Assembly also define the work of UNEP.
We're getting very close now to an agreement on an internationally legally binding treaty or instrument to end plastic waste, which is really to take the leakage of plastic into nature away, to start designing plastics for recycling, actually collect them and recycle it and create a circular economy on plastics. And the idea here is to get a strong mandate from here so we can sit down and negotiate such a treaty. So there's hard work ahead, and we're far from done. But I have to say that so far it has been looking quite good.
Species shifts, impacts on rainfalls, disturbance as we are emitting ever more CO2 into the atmosphere of coral reefs, etc. And there is an understanding that nature can't keep taking these punches and still remain doing the service that we need it to do. Between 1950, when plastic went mainstream into the markets, and around 2017, we pumped 9 billion tons of plastic into our environment. And 7 billion tons of that is waste. Because let's face it, nanoplastics is in the ocean and in our groundwater. Let's face it, fish eats plastic, and let's face it, we eat fish. So we need to understand this.
As a result of a 100% increased costs for refuse collection in Ibadan, southwest Nigeria, a Nigerian woman decided it was time to do something different. Today, Jumoke Olowokere runs a small business converting waste products into playground equipment for schools. Last year, she opened a waste museum featuring works of artists who use anything from tires to plastic, styrofoam, and food waste.
Inside Nigeria's Waste Museum in Ibadan, Oyo State, Jumoke Olowokere works on her latest creations made out of used tires, an addition to a wide collection produced from used plastic, fabric, wine corks, amongst other found objects. The founder of what she calls Africa's first waste museum joins a growing number of Nigerians who are using waste to create amazing works of art and fashion to highlight the damaging impact of filth on the environment. Her interest in making art from waste started when she realized her landlord was going to increase her waste collection bill because of the amount of dirt generated from her home. While reading up on how to reduce, reuse and recycle.
The waste from my kitchen inspired me. For each time I see waste in my kitchen and I want to throw it away, I don't want to throw it away. So I'm always like, what can we do with this thing? Why do we have to throw this thing away? Why must it end up in the dustbin? Why must we throw it in the landfill? So I always, want to challenge myself to see what I could come up with using the waste. Apart from running the Waste Museum, she also makes equipment for school playgrounds. In Nigeria, a nation of more than 200 million people, plastic waste, especially in form of discarded bags, food and drink packaging, is popular, and dropping of litter is commonplace. If we cannot define where our waste is going to and what that waste is being used for, then we have not started. Because it's not enough for you to just pick the waste, drop them on the landfill and say, oh, that's it, final, oh, bye-bye.
A lot of dirt in the country ends up in waterways that lead into the Gulf of Guinea, prompting concerns about the amount of plastic entering the sea. As UN member states meet in Kenya's capital, Nairobi, this week to agree on plans for the first global treaty to tackle plastic pollution, this artist hopes people will do more to protect the environment.
I love the theme for this year. The theme is strengthening action for nature towards achieving the SDG goals. And what this simply means to me is everybody should start their own gardening. Because there's no how you will have a garden, I'll have a garden that will not strengthen nature. There's no how you will have a garden in your house that you will not love nature.
The 44-year-old former visual arts teacher collects some of her waste materials from people's homes and also picks plastics off the streets.
Sort them.
And that's it on the program today. Thank you for watching. I'm Layo Adegoke.